Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Mad Science Lab podcast, brought to you by the Fantasy Football Universe, now on the Fantasy Football Advice Network. Today, I am back for another edition of Dynasty Risers and Fallers with my good buddy, Justin Stevens from Toilets to Titles and the Frankenstank League. I said this the other day, my single favorite event of the entire Expo weekend. And I had a few friends I've tried to talk into it, but they just don't think they can handle that level of intensity for their first live draft. I said, go sign up, go sign. No, they're like, oh, that's way too much. But I loved it. It was the best part of the weekend. How's it going, buddy?
Yeah. Hey, man, that's fair. And I appreciate you trying to get the word out. That's absolutely intense. Tell those friends that everybody fails at Frank typically in the first year, but you got to get it out of the way so you can win. You can be successful the second year.
Oh my God, I loved it. It was like combining, I said this yesterday, combining fantasy football with chess, because it's not just draft your guys and set your lineups. You have cards to worry. Oh, it was so much fun. I love the strategy. It was awesome. It was also, I compared it to regular fantasy to Frank is like playing Hold'em poker to no limit Hold'em. 1 minute I'm sitting there going, I am 5-0. I'm going to destroy this league. And 3 weeks later, I'm going, I quit. I'm never doing this again. I hate this. I've been robbed 2 weeks in a row. I lost by half a point and got my best player stolen, and then got you on a bye week and had another player stolen. I'm going, week 5, I had Kelsey and Andrews on my team. Week 7, I didn't have a tight end and had to add one. I'm going, I quit. I don't want to ever do this again. So it's the swings are real.
Yeah, it's insane, especially with those huge tight end premiums. I bet that was crucial.
Yeah, I was not thrilled. But before we get into it, I guess I should play our intro. So, like I said, now on the Fantasy Football Advice Network. All right, I suppose I should have asked you to introduce yourself and tell everyone where we can find your work before I went on a 5-minute spiel about where we find your work. So tell me about yourself.
All right. Yeah, I'm Justin Stevens. I'm from the Toilets to Titles podcast network. We do year-round content on football. We're actually starting to dip our toes a little bit into baseball this year with our sponsor that you see down below me here, joinrival.com/title tribe, where we're doing like best ball baseball leagues and kind of getting a little bit into March Madness coming up. We've got a big contest for our Patreon-only supporters. So those of you that are Patreon supporters will get like a free entry into a March Madness thing that we're doing. That's patreon.com/toilets and titles. Real money for the prize. It's just free for you to join if you're a Patreon. So that's nice. But yeah, a lot of off-season stuff going on. One of my biggest priorities this summer is to try to get on as a guest to as many shows as possible. So I appreciate you reaching out to me, Mad Scientist. What's cooking for today's show?
Yeah, thanks for joining me. I was in your playoff pool there. I miscalculated who I thought was going to be in the Super Bowl, and I got to go. I was decent. I think I finished maybe 10th or something. I got to go into the Super Bowl with my starting quarterback as Sam Darnold because he was who I had left. I had used both Mahomes because I had it factored in as Baltimore San Fran, so I was going to start Lamar Jackson in the Super Bowl. Only problem was he was gone, and I had to start Sam Darnold, and I was like, well, damn it, I'm screwed up. The funny part was I ended up streaming the two receivers because I was screwed there too. Hardman and MVS, I think they both had a touchdown. Oh, no, it was Hardman and Jennings, and I was like, oh, it was all right,
okay.
But Sam Darnold killed me, man, so.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I just decided a couple days ago what you're referring to is a playoff challenge that we do where once you start a player, you can't start him again for the rest of the playoffs. I've decided that I'm going to do that for the regular season as one of our Toilets to Titles leagues next year. So all 32 teams will be involved. And once you select a player 1 week, you can't use them again the rest of the season. It's going to be set up that whole way. But I'm doing like crazy, weird leagues like that all year this whole offseason. I'm setting people up in leagues like that. So like the one I'm doing now is like you represent one of the NFL teams. There's 32 teams in the league. It's kind of like a hybrid between best ball and actual fantasy. So it's kind of a weird league. But once I fill up all 32 of those teams, I'm gonna reach out to you about that playoff challenge, but regular season format. It'll be wild.
I forgot. Someone ran one last year and I did it. And I remember after about 6 weeks, one guy was just victory lapping. I'm up 300 points on everyone. And you look, you burned the top 6 at every position. Of course you're up 300 points. And he ended up finishing like 35th out of 50 people.
Yeah.
It's like you burned all your good options. You didn't look at matchups. You just went by whoever the highest ranked each week was. But so I'm really looking forward to it. You're going to have to do your best once we get into August. Once you get the new cards out and you get the rules set up for Frank, you're going to have to do your best to not sue me for copyright because I'm running weekly Frankenstein mock drafts. I'm just telling you right now, I'm doing this once a week. My best mock draft, I had one of my co-hosts on last year, and he really like dove into your rules. I thought, I just said, here's the rules. Take a quick once over so you know what you're doing. We're in the mock draft, and he's going, well, have you ever thought into that? I'm going, shit, wow. I had him tutor me, the guy who never played in your league. I had him tutor me before your draft because I was like, wow, that's a really good idea. He's like, well, have you thought about the positional value of this and that? I'm going, holy shit, this guy's awesome. So I enjoyed it. It was my most fun mock draft because nobody knows what the hell it was. So it was awesome.
When you're ready to do the mock, let me know. But what I'll do my best on that. But unfortunately, we release things periodically, so you're not going to have it all up until like a month before, probably. But
that's when I'll start doing the mocks a month before. Right. So,
but you let me know, and I'll join one of them.
Perfect. I guess we should probably get into it then before I spend 20 minutes talking about Frankenstein. All right. We've got your first player. Your riser is New York Jets receiver Garrett Wilson. He has played 2 seasons. He's been wide receiver 21 and 26. Last year, 95 receptions on 168 targets, 1,042 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He currently sits as 11th overall wide receiver 7 on Keep Trade Cut. And identical on Fantasy Pros, wide receiver 7, 11th overall. He is in the bottom end. Oh, no, sorry, that's overall. Let me look at wide receiver. He is in the middle of the tier 2 group of receivers. So like I said, 11th overall, wide receiver 7. Do you see him rising further? Are you higher on him? Why is he a riser for you?
All right, so Garrett Wilson is a riser for me because just as you said, he's finished that low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3 in that range the last 2 seasons. And last season, with the prospects of Aaron Rodgers being there, everybody kind of was big on him. He was a high riser for a lot of people, and a lot of people went big on him, right? So this offseason, I know it's early in the offseason, but when I'm hearing people talk about risers, and even when I looked at your roster of guests, when they were listing all of their risers, nobody mentions anything about Garrett Wilson. And I've read articles about people's risers for this season. Nobody's talking about Garrett Wilson. And it's because he burnt a lot of people last season. But we still have Aaron Rodgers. He's still going to be coming back. And even if Aaron Rodgers, because of that Achilles, which it looks like he's probably going to be 100% from, even if he's not 100% and he stands there like a statue and he doesn't do anything but a quick 3-step drop and get rid of the ball as soon as he feels pressure, that's still going to be exponentially better than the crap that Garrett Wilson's had at quarterback for the first 2 years of his career. So the first 2 years he's averaged actually, you know what? Let me go back even farther. Let's talk about the wide receiver, the third-year wide receiver breakouts that happen. All right, this is a thing. And I went back and looked just at the last 2 years because I knew we didn't have a lot of time. But even the last 2 years, we had Amon-Ra St. Brown this past year. In year 1, he was 13.4 PPR points per game. Year 2, he went up a little bit to 16.7. Year 3, he jacked up to 20.7. He was the wide receiver 3 overall last season for your fantasy teams. In the previous year, it was CeeDee Lamb, 13.6 PPR. Then in year 2, he went up just a tiny bit at 14.6 PPR. Then he jacked up to 17.7 PPR and was a solid wide receiver 1 for your fantasy teams in his third year. Now we have Garrett Wilson, and now he has a quarterback. I'm going to see that jump of 12.7 PPR and 12.5 PPR points per game over his first 2 years. It's going to jack up. It's going to be up there around 17, 18 points per game. He's going to be a mid wide receiver 1, maybe mid to low wide receiver 1. But because of the fact that he burnt so many people last year, and we see this every year in fantasy, people are going to not want to risk it. They're going to say it's still just the Jets being the Jets. He didn't increase at all with the same level of quarterback play. He's not going to increase that much for me to want to bump up and draft him higher. So you're going to be able to get him a little lower. You're going to be able to draft him as a mid wide receiver 2, and he's going to give you mid wide receiver 1 performance.
No, I like it. I'm looking at it now. I think I'm going to be higher on him than most. Okay, so the top tier is obvious. It's Jefferson, Chase, and Lamb. For me, I have Amon-Ra St. Brown as the last player in that tier 1. Fantasy Pros has him as the top of tier 2. But so for me, I move St. Brown up a spot into tier 1. And then I have Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, AJ Brown as my top 3 in tier 2. They also include in their tier 2 Marvin Harrison Jr., Tyreek, and Puka. And I guess there's even further down, it's Waddle and Neighbors. Where do you see him? Like, do you see him getting into tier 1 by the end of the year with Jefferson, Chase, Lamb, and St. Brown? Do you see him at the top of tier 2, bottom of tier 2? Like, where do you see him in this group of top 10 receivers, I guess we'll call it?
I'm kind of shocked the Fantasy Pros has him that high, to be honest with you, because I'm not seeing him that high on a lot of lists. So,
yeah,
so kudos to them. But that's probably about where I would lay him, right around 6-7. I would probably, again, this is another riser, but I would probably put Puka ahead of him as well, just because I think that man's going to be quarterback proof. Obviously, Stafford played phenomenal football, but a lot of that was because Puka stepped up and was that number one guy instead of Kupp, which was insane. But whenever Kupp went down, Puka continued to perform. Whenever Kupp came back, Puka continued to perform. So he's always going to be a baller. So for dynasty purposes, I would probably put Puka up there, maybe even a slot above Garrett Wilson, because I'm more concerned about Garrett being QB dependent. And we don't know how much longer Rodgers has in the tank. So even though I have him as a riser for Dynasty, that's mostly for the next couple of seasons. And then hopefully he's no longer QB dependent. But we know he's QB dependent. And when I'm talking Dynasty or even fantasy in general, I like to base my players based off of what we know, not what we think we know. And with what we do know is at this point in his career, he is quarterback dependent, because with the quarterbacks he's had, Garrett Wilson has kind of been slop in a lot of games.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know if I think he's quarterback dependent. He is one of those guys where the best thing I would say is he's not quarterback dependent. He is, however, limited by absolute dog shit quarterback play. Like he can make do with your Joe Flacco average quarterback. I think he did the year before with Flacco, right? It's just there's a certain level of quarterback where I don't think any receiver in this league can overcome it, and that's what I think he's coming through. But you're right; he's in a sense he's quarterback dependent. It's just
I guess where I was coming from is I look at guys like DJ Moore that are obviously not quarterback dependent. Like those quarterbacks he had with the Panthers, you could throw him in with the Jets last year. He still gets 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns somehow. But
yeah. So in the end, maybe it limits his upside here. I definitely see what you're saying though, as far as quarterback dependent.
Right.
But I think we both agree he's pretty much a consensus top 10 here. I think would you have him 6 or 7, 8?
I think I have him around 7 after I put Puka ahead of him.
Oh, I think I have him at 6, but I have Puka behind him, and I have him above AJ Brown, but I'm not a big AJ Brown guy.
Yeah, I've got them both above AJ Brown as well.
We will move on to your faller. He's played 9 seasons. This one's easy to understand. 9 seasons. His wide receiver finishes are wide receiver 46, 30, 19, 10, 24, 3, 7, 4, and 9 last year. Stephon Diggs, 107 receptions, 160 targets, 1,183 yards, and 8 touchdowns. And the first thing everyone's going to say is, well, how can he be a faller? He's been a top 10 for the past 5 years, but he's 30 in his 10th season. So we have KTC has him 78th overall, which was surprising to me that that he was that low, and wide receiver 34. But that just goes to show you, I don't like KTC, keep trade cut, but it's kind of a good reflection in the offseason of how the general public values him. On Fantasy Pros, he's 51 overall and wide receiver 27. I think that's a little more fair. 78 is pretty low, and it just goes to show you how the general public really doesn't value these veterans this time of year. Like, I think once we get to the point where you're going to have to start setting lineups for week 1 or even in August in draft season, that's going to skyrocket because people are going to want him in their lineup. But for now, it's, oh, he's over 25. Let's get him the hell off my roster. So what do you have to say here about Diggs? What are your thoughts?
All right. So again, go with what we know, not with what we think we know, right? So here's what I know about Diggs. It's just as you said, 30 years old, and he'll be 31 by the end of the season. Um, so okay, 6 of his 9 games last season, six of his first 9 games. Let me say the first 9 games. 6 of those first 9 games, he's a wide receiver one, and he averaged 21.7 points per game over that stretch. But the team was 5-4 over that stretch, and Josh Allen had 324 attempts in those first 9 games. So over that last 8 game stretch, where Diggs finished as the wide receiver one exactly 0 times in the last 8 games, the Bills were 6-2. Allen threw the ball 255 times over that 8 game stretch, so much less, even on a attempts per game basis. And then now we also evaluate James Cook and his rushing stats over that same time frame. Over the first 9 games, Cook carried the ball 108 carries, 22 catches. That was 14.4 touches per game. And then over the last 8, he had 129 carries, so 21 more carries in one less game, the same amount of catches, but he averaged 4.5 more touches per game. So in short, the Bills figured out a way to not only win football games, but help also with Josh Allen's efficiency, because over that course of that time, his interceptions dropped drastically. His rushing touchdowns for Josh Allen went way up, and it was by not force feeding Diggs the ball. In the past, Diggs has gotten his fantasy points, but Diggs has always been the guy that's wanted the ball and demanded the ball, and they've force fed him the ball with his whole history, his whole career, it's been that way. So now the Bills dial that back a little bit and decide to play team ball with a really good running game that's only going to get better next season. So that last 8 games, I think, is a better stretch of numbers that we can expect for most of next season. And he still had great games in those last 8. Don't get me wrong; he still had 2 games where he had decent numbers. But again, he wasn't a wide receiver one at all during those 8 games. But he had a couple of decent games. I still think he's going to be that wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, but because of his history, just like you said, why is this guy going to be a follower? Because of his past history of all the other seasons. Well, that's my reason why. At some point, a 30-year-old, 31-year-old wide receiver is going to hit a slope, and you're going to start noticing a decline. And I think that the Bills realize that he's hit that decline to the point where he can't be the focal anymore. He can't be the guy. But he can still be the guy at wide receiver, don't get me wrong, but he can't be the guy that they plan for to help them win football games anymore.
He's a hard one to evaluate for me. I agree. At the end of the season, he doesn't look like the player he used to be. I think he's either done or very close to done. Like, if I have him, I'm hoping if I'm a contender, maybe I get one good year out of him. The problem, I'm just looking like the range he's at. It's either other older receivers that I don't really want either, like Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, Mike Evans, Amari Cooper. They're all Keenan Allen. They're all similar in age and upside. Or you've got guys that I'm not really convinced about, Christian Watson here, Terry McLaurin. So I think right now he's appropriately priced on Fantasy Pros. It's just not a range where I really love any of the picks. How comfortable are you, or what range would you find yourself comfortable taking him? Like, he's wide receiver 27 right now in tier 4.
Since we were talking Dynasty, we're talking startups.
Yep.
I'm probably going to have him listed right around that. I want to say he's going to finish the next several seasons on average as a high-end wide receiver 3, but because of his name value, I think I could probably still get something out of him the next time he has a big game next season. So I might bump him up to like a low-end wide receiver 2 just for that trade piece, that trade value, if he has a big game early on next season. The problem I have with that range, though, is that for Dynasty, for me personally, I like to go wide receiver heavy early because those young guys are going to last longer. So I'm not drafting any of those guys back there that you just named off, your Devontae Adams, your Keenan Allens, and all that for Dynasty, because I drafted wide receivers early. But if you look at that same list of RB2s, RB3s back in that range, you're going to be probably perfectly okay with a lot of those running backs because they only last a couple of seasons at a time anyway. So you're drafting those guys much later and still having a rock solid starting lineup, and then you're just plug and play with running backs moving forward with the rookies coming in after your startups, because those rookie running backs are the ones that get the most carries because they're running on those rookie contracts.
No, I think you're 100% correct. And that's why he's falling so far. That's why all of them, the Adams, Cup, that whole group I named, they're all falling because you're right. That's the spot in startups where people are pivoting and they've loaded up on, this group of the tier 1, 2, even 3. Once you get to about wide receiver 20, so all the top 24 receivers, they're going early, but I would be willing to bet. I'm going to try and switch over to the overall rankings here. I bet you there's a huge drop off. So we have wide receiver 26 goes at 45th overall, and then it's a huge drop off. Like you're talking 10 wide receiver spots drops you 40 spots in the draft. It's kind of a dead zone we're seeing there for that tier of wide receivers where you're right. People are they're pivoting to running back. They're starting to grab a tight end or a quarterback. This is one quarterback, obviously. And I think that's why they're falling so low. But if he falls to 78 overall and wide receiver 34, I think I'm going to have a lot of shares of Diggs, even in rookie draft or rookie startups, or dynasty startups, just for the reason you said. I think he still has a little bit left, and I think I can probably flip him. So,
yeah.
All
same
right,
with Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen. Yeah.
All right. Well, before we get out of here, you want to take another second here to tell everyone where we can find you?
Oh, yeah, sure. So youtube.com/toilets and titles. Actually, tonight we're going to have on Eric Froton of NBC Sports. He's coming on to talk Dynasty rookies. So how about that? So your audience is tuning in to check out Dynasty content right now. They can flip on over and check us out after the show. And again, we already mentioned the Frank drafts going on at Canton. Reach out to me. It's at JustinFF_. Shoot me a DM if you want in on one of those live drafts in Canton, and we're gonna be doing giveaways all off season for because it's $25 entry into this crazy league. But you might win a free entry if you listen to the right show and when we're doing different passwords and codes and stuff like that we have going on all off season. But we got a rookie big board on our website, toiletsandtitles.com. With all of our rookie rankings. We got a whole team of guys that are all in our Gilded chat that you mentioned earlier, our interactive community, the Gilded channel. So you just got to download the Gilded app, and then again, shoot me a DM. Let me know if you want invited into that. But that's just kind of a taste of what we have going on this offseason between what I talked about before, what I talked about now. Like a lot of shows dial it back a bit in the offseason. We really kind of kick it into high gear in the offseason because there's such a fewer amount of people that are watching. The ones that do watch are kind of addicted degenerates like us. So that's the community that we want to grow closer to, the ones that are equally as degenerate as us. You're muted.
Of course I am. I was coughing and muted myself and then forgot to unmute it. What I was saying was, well, thank you very much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you at the Expo and drafting again. This has been the Mad Science Lab podcast, our latest episode of Risers and Fallers. Head over to fantasyfootballuniverse.com to check us out, or head over to our new network where you can see our new episode daily. Come back again tomorrow for the next Risers and Fallers on the Fantasy Football Advice Network. Thank you again to Justin for joining me. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you later.